direct ceremonies. Since the two vice presidents of the Republic, Dr. Chabata and Buhari, the Minister of Defense, the Chairman of Zanu PF, Mrs. Chiburi Ashidi, Minister of State for Rara Metropolitan Province, Charles Sareva, the Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Daniel Darwin. Now the ministers and deputy ministers were here. The Chief Secretary to the President Cabinet, Dr. Martin Shoya, senior government officials were here. President of the National Chiefs Council, Senior Chief Chana Kumar, and other chiefs were here. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairperson of the Zimbabwe National Elders Forum, Reverend Dr. Okolo, and esteemed members of this forum. Representatives of the women and the youth who are here, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. I think I'm happy to be invited by the Zimbabwe National Elders Forum. This is a grouping of eminent citizens of this great nation. For me to address you on an important subject that speaks to the colonial injustices suffered by our people from the year 1890 to 1980. I'm humbled by the Elders Forum collective will towards the restoration of our dignity in the aftermath of the decades-long subjugation of the indigenous native of this country by the racist colonial regime that kicked out. I am further pleased that the forum has immersed itself in researching this important topic for a few years, focusing on the land issue. In doing so, they have accumulated information and evidence on the impact of colonialism on our society. In keeping with this good work, I have had the privilege of receiving a paper from the forum titled, in a quote, "The Untold Story of Injustices, Trauma and Losses Experienced by Indigenous Zimbabweans during the colonial era, 1890 to 1980, a case for reparations." I thank you. As many of us will recall, the racist colonial regime started grabbing land around 1893, a process that was further consolidated by pieces of unjust legislation, such as the Land Apportionment Act of 1951 and the Native Land Husbandry Act of 1950, amongst others. But native land. It is therefore pleasing that the forum intends to go further and comprehensively document the untold story of the injustices, the trauma and the loss of lives and livelihoods experienced by our indigenous black people due to colonial land appropriation and the forced movements. The proposed study, as I am reliably informed, will put forward recommendations that will explore options to assist in the long-term healing of affected communities, as well as for rekindling and recreating goodwill. Goodwill, no. Okay. Goodwill between the Zimbabwean society at large and the former colonial power. We have observed that indeed quite recently as the former colonial powers of the United Kingdom apologizing to the Mau of Kenya, and Germany also apologizing to the Bandero, Herero and Nama people of Namibia. We therefore, we asked, when are the rest of us in the former colonies going to receive similar apologies from these people, the colonizers, the British, the Rwanda? We need it. They must apologize. It is no secret that colonial violence was brutal and systematic. And those of us old enough to tell the tale still bear scars and associated trauma from the violence. Those of my age, most of my colleagues in my category of age, went through very difficult and cruel imprisonment. 10, 15 years in prison here, like these, like these British oppressors. We still bear the scars and the associated trauma from that type of violence. Even in the quest for freedom and self-determination in both the first and second Chimurenga, our efforts were considered criminal and treated as such when we sought freedom. And yet they said they were Christians. Amen. But Christian, resultantly, many were executed. I remember 1964 and 65 when we were incarcerated here at Rana prison. They will execute our colleagues and ask us to dig the graves and bury them. Yeah, it's all the prison. 1965. We remember this more than a century later because the residual effects of decades-long pain and bitterness are still real up to today. There's a difference, of course, between hearing the events and living through the events. Indeed, we can no longer remain silent while our people carry the scars of a painful and cruel past. The time has come for us to engage our erstwhile former colonial power objectively and strictly, seeking the much delayed yet important post-colonial gesture of reparations, restorations, and much needed apology and reconciliation. Apology and reconciliation in capital letters. Equal. The subject of reparations is not new, but the calls for restitution continue to grow louder and louder. While my administration has been forthright in accommodating compensation for former white farmers in respect of improvements on the farms redistributed by the state, we cannot afford to ignore the cries of our people for justice. Hence the reason why my government has placed substantial value and significance to the journey that the Elders Forum is embarked on through this proposed study. They have my full support. In retrospect, it is the colonial power that should have compensated Zimbabwe first, and Zimbabwe then using part of the compensation for reparations to compensate the former white farmers for improvements. It is therefore important for our key knowledge industries and institutions to support this study by our Elders Forum, so that we harvest as many enriching insights into the human experiences of colonialism and its aftermath. Indeed, a whole of society approach will only serve to give us the best results possible, with the significance of this work reverberating for generations to come. I would therefore like to assure my government's support in this endeavor and further call upon the Zimbabwean society here at home and beyond our borders to also extend a supporting hand to the Zimbabwe National Elders Forum. Let me assure the Zimbabwe Elders Forum that they have my full support if they need the resources. As I conclude, I wish to remind us that this is one of the most important investments we have to make, and we owe it to our forefathers, our children, and the future generations that we stood up as a nation. With these remarks, it is now my honor and privilege to officially launch this reparations initiative in a journey which we must complete.